I'm sorry, Cliff, we can't hear you. Can you check your mute?
Is that better now?
Certainly is. Thank you.
you?
Crystal clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. A number of us are on Zoom at the moment. Quite a few of us were on Teams earlier on. This is not the first time that we've had a dual joining instruction, only one of which is working. In future, can the officers decide on whether it's going to be Teams or Zoom and send out the joining instructions for whichever one they want it to be? But to have both and to join the wrong one, which has happened on more than one occasion, is quite annoying. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Betton. I think that's a fair comment. They all understand. I think it's partly to do with the automatic linkage of the Teams invite to every meeting, but maybe the officers could take note of that and perform what some of us have to do in the delete action of the Teams details. Thanks for raising it, Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Leader. I welcome, as do a number of my residents, the new website, and we've actually had reference from one of your councillors this evening about IT. I'm just looking for assurance that the contents of the website reflects the most recent records of the council, and would welcome a level of confidence that the documents that are uploaded therein are accurate and timely. Thank you.
I mean, certainly the plan, Councillor Wheeler, that it is kept up to date. If there are specifics, and I know one or two things have come across my desk that looked a bit odd, but if there are specifics where you find it at fault, I'm sure the relevant officers that you know well will be happy to pick it up and work it through in the interest of yourself and the residents. But thank you for it.
It relates specifically to the Constitution, which I'm sure that, as it's something which underpins the very running and operation of the council, would be an absolute priority. So I'm looking for assurance from the leader that the Constitution, as published, is a right and correct record of how we should be conducting business.
We'll certainly have. Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. That's a fair point. So we'll have to go away and have a look at that and check if you're finding it wanting, and make sure that it is addressed if there's a gap as soon as possible. So we'll come back to you within the normal time frame to both answer your question and confirm that that's as it should be. Thank you. Councillor Quinn, please.
Thank you. So my question is also on Mr. Watson's appearance at a recent committee. Now, clearly he was there to discuss budget strains facing local councils, including Surrey Heath. So I do think it's a bit strange to use his appearance there to somehow argue our finances are not in trouble. But he also said last month's statistics of people presenting as homeless to Surrey Heath Borough Council doubled. And I want the leader's reaction to that and his comments about what the administration is going to do to tackle increasing homelessness in Surrey Heath.
As I stated before, Mr. Watson, I'm sure, made comments in good faith to the Select Committee as his position, as appropriate to his position. In terms of the statement around the homelessness, I think it's fair to say that myself and the relevant portfolio holder and relevant officers have been concerned about the general trend of homelessness within Surrey Heath. I don't know whether Councillor Finn Cook can confirm whether it's been doubling in recent times.
Thank you. I think the figures that you might be referencing, Councillor Quinn, are with regard to those who have contacted the council with queries around housing and homelessness. It doesn't necessarily mean from people who are homeless. So it isn't a correct correlation, but I can get some up-to-date figures for you on that and get that to you.
Thank you, Councillor Finn Cook. Councillor Quinn, for your question. I didn't see whose hand went up, so we'll start right to left. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you. It's just a quick one, totally unrelated. At the recent bid meeting, the subject of professional begging came up. And as I was walking through, after the meeting, in fact, I saw 3 beggars throughout the town, all with very nice signs, all written in the same hand. I did report this back straight away, and I know the officers were going to look into it, and I know it's something that Councillor Finnan Cook was looking into. It's just a concern that there is, what I understand is they're being dragged in from somewhere else and then being treated badly. They do their begging and they get collected again at the end of the day. So I'm just wondering how we're dealing with that within the borough. Thank you.
Thank you for raising. I was not aware of that. Councillor Whitcroft, are you close to this at all in terms of community safety aspects? Or
again, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of it either.
Okay. Well, we'll look into it and see what we can find out. I can't remember whether the thing we passed a couple of months ago that covers this or not in terms of begging. But if it doesn't, it's something we could look at potentially to extend to that. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Garrett. We'll come back to you with some information. Councillor Mears, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unlike Councillor Quinn, I do agree that the Section 151 officers' statements and answers under oath at the Select Committee are relevant to this council's financial position, considering he was talking about this council's financial position. I want to say thank you to the administration for drawing attention to the committee over their social media. It was transparent, but perhaps what was not transparent was sort of ignoring the outcome and statements of that committee, which weren't published after. I imagine that's because it's deeply contradictory to the leader's unofficial statement, which says we're facing effective bankruptcy in 3 to 5 years, although it could be as little as 2, whereas the Section 151 officer said we'll be happy all the way through at least the 4-year period. So I appreciate what you've already said in response to Councillor Garrett, but is the leader's unofficial statement or the statement of the Section 151 officer under oath a seasoned technical finance officer to be the source of truth when considering financial decision-making at the council in other meetings, or do we take your unofficial statement as the source of truth? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mears. Obviously, as you're aware, Mr. Watson is not able to respond to questions. I have the honour of doing that on behalf of the council. In both our opinions, opinions based on the information we see and our view of the risks going forward. As I have said before, we do see substantial costs coming through, cost increases coming through and pressures coming through into the budget. We also see large gaps in the budget that we've inherited. So as you will be aware, and certainly Councillor Garrett and Councillor White will clearly be aware, there was no budget put in place for all of the revenue grants to support the organisations that do fantastic work for our residents. That was a deliberate decision made by the Conservative administration, which is one of the gaps that we'll have to plug. So it's very much a matter of interpretation of the risks going forward. But there are serious pressures within our budget. We are seeing that coming through. It is in no way related to the ambitions of this administration to take Surrey Heath going forward. It's directly correlated with the local activities of the previous Conservative administration and the national government dynamics, particularly things like Trussonomics, that have led to such heartache within this constituency and this borough. Thank you for your question, Councillor Mears. Councillor Wilson was up before you, Councillor Mears.
Thank you. The M3 footbridge between Bagshot and Lightwater is about to be demolished on the second weekend in December. So I guess my question is probably for Councillor Ashbury. The planned diversion route is going to take all traffic on both directions on the M3 through Bagshot and Camberley down the A30 through about a dozen sets of traffic lights for a whole weekend. Obviously, this is going to cause complete gridlock. What's your assessment of what's going to happen, and is there anything that can be done about it? Thank you.
Councillor Ashbury.
Thank you for your question. Councillor Wilson. As you know, we've held a number of discussions with National Highways and with Surrey County and with yourselves as ward councillors over this. The upshot of the whole discussion is National Highways feel the risk of leaving the bridge as it is too great to users of the M3. They are concerned that one more strike on the bridge could lead to collapse, which is why they've restricted traffic in the two outside lanes to a height restriction. The plan, therefore, is Friday the 8th of December at 9 o'clock in the evening. They will close the motorway both ways, and the motorway will remain closed until 6 o'clock on Monday morning, the 11th of December. Obviously, all the traffic has to go elsewhere. We had discussions with both National Highways and Surrey County, and the least worst option is what is being put in place. So it's not a good option, but the least worst option, which will close the motorway from junctions 4A to 3 and divert traffic from junction 3 up the A322, so not through Bagshot, but up the A322 and then onto the A30, all the way down the A30 through the centre of Camberley and down onto the A327 to rejoin the motorway at 4A. And the other way is the same, with other diversions from junction 4 up the A331 for anyone trying to join at junction 4 to the Meadows roundabout and then from there. So we can expect that weekend there to be significant amount of traffic, particularly running down the A30 through Camberley. It is unfortunately unavoidable. We have had discussions. We looked at whether there were options to change the phasing of the traffic lights to try to ease the traffic, etc. The experts at National Highways in Surrey County have said that's the least worst option they can have. So all of it is based upon the safety of road users and the concern, which is why they feel it has to be done as soon as possible. Just before I finish, as an aside, I know you've seen it, but just so everyone knows, because of your contact and constant contact with the authorities at Surrey County, the crash barriers on the alternative pedestrian routes are now going to be properly repaired so that that becomes a safe alternative route, albeit a 1.5 mile detour, but that is now to be done, and they are investigating the tunnels under the railway to try to improve that. So thank you for your work on that, and please keep it up on behalf of the residents of Bagshot and Lightwater.
Thank you, Councillor Ashley. Maybe just to add to that, because I was in correspondence with the Countryside Ranger today, they don't believe they can put in place an alternative pedestrian route through the country park and the MOD land because it isn't fit for purpose. They will put some signage to help those that might not be so familiar with the area to at least point out where the tunnel is. But that's the best they can do, unfortunately. Okay, I think I'll be generous this time, Councillor Mears. Maybe not every time, because we're over the 15 minutes, but yes, Councillor Mears.
Thank you for your generosity, Leader, and letting me ask you this follow-up to your previous answer. I appreciate opinions are and will be different, but that's not helpful when we need to be able to confidently make decisions and scrutinise decisions regarding finances. So can I please ask this administration to set out its position that's united with subject matter expert officers and satisfies the facts that I'm sure our Section 151 officer considered when answering under oath. Thank you.
We'll be delighted to do so as part of the budget process, and then the truth will out, very much so. Thank you, Councillor Mears, for your question. Sorry, okay. If we move on now to item 6, and maybe just before we do so, just like to thank the Performance and Finance Chair and the committee for their review and continuous improvement observations of a number of these reports. I thought I'd just make that point more generally up front rather than say it every time in the interest of efficiency and effectiveness. But it is much appreciated, and we look forward to the committee's observations on future reports as well. So thank you for that, Councillor Garrett and team. Item 6 is the Corporate Peer Challenge, which I think I have the honour of leading. Were there any questions on that? I think we're all fairly familiar with it. It's been discussed and highlighted previously, but we've now got the action plan associated with it. Yes, please, Councillor Garrett.
Leader, thank you. And I would just like to thank the committee that obviously had read the papers and went through it in quite detail on the night. So thank you for them. I just want to re-echo the question I asked on the night, because I think it's relevant based on obviously everything else is going on. The concern around the 21 actions that have to be completed by April. Now I know you're looking to prioritise those actions. I'm just again concerned of the time taken needed to keep those actions in place, and it would be nice to know that we are prioritising and not expecting the officers, because it's them that will be working on it, to get all those actions in place by April. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Yeah, so I think it's fair comment. I think the Chief Executive will agree that we had a conversation about the number of actions. I think it would be good practice, based on the feedback from the Performance and Finance Committee and the observation Councillor Garrett's made here, if we do go through and specifically highlight high, medium, low priorities. So we'll take that away. Thank you for that, Councillor Garrett. I think in terms of the April deadline, it's more that we show progress and that things are progressing by that date. They don't all have to be done by April. They want to see that we have taken their report seriously and have tried to distill the key things that we need to do to take this council to the next level. So I think that's a fair challenge from their side that we want to do, but we will reflect on the observation that a little bit more high, medium, low in terms of the prioritisation would be appropriate. Thank you for that. Any other questions or around this report? Sorry, did you say no, Chair? No, sorry. Yeah, very good. Okay, so again, we're very supportive of this. It was a positive experience. We look forward to welcoming back the team in April, and we look forward to the officers chipping away on some of these actions with the support from various members. So we're asked to resolve that the Peer Challenge Action Plan Annex A be agreed. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. So we move on to item 7, which I think Councillor Whitcroft is with you.
Thank you, Leader. This item is the quality management approach paper. The Council's short-term plan committed to reviewing the approach to the use of quality management systems, the outcomes of which are outlined in this paper. In brief, the paper will run alongside the recommendations, as we've just been talking, of the Peer Challenge Review, and also with working with other quality organisations specialising in their various services. It is proposed to undertake a biannual service review to ensure that we are giving our residents the best service we can. A pilot scheme has been undertaken within planning enforcement. I believe it is vital for all officers to be involved in the process, to be sure that we're listening to their opinions on what works and what they feel would not. Going forward, the outcomes of the pilot need to be considered before we extend this to other services, subject to the criteria referred to within the paper. We've also considered the possibility of working towards formal accreditation. However, this is not viable. Whilst the formal quality assurance accreditation would work within some services, it would merely hinder others, as you can see from section 4.14 of the paper. In addition, the cost of implementing the scheme is between £225,000 and £265,000, in addition to the extra time needed by current staff. In view of the current financial climate, as discussed earlier within the Council, I cannot recommend this spend. There is no direct financial return from the scheme, and we expect to enhance customer experience from working with the principles of ISO 9001. I therefore recommend this to the Executive.
Thank you, Councillor Whitcroft. Any questions on this report? Councillor Garrett.
I'm sorry. I don't want it just to be me. I just want to... so I just done an ISO 9001 last Thursday. I think the dentist was less painful. So I'm glad that I think what you're saying is you don't want to go down the route of ISO 9001. Because I know previously this was something that was being heavily pushed. So I think I'm happy that we're not going down that route. And especially because of the costs involved. I suppose my question is, you're suggesting a biannual. So is that a biannual looking at all of the departments, or is that a biannual looking at some departments 1 year, in the first 6 months or whatever? So is it going to be a scheduled looking at all departments, or going through all departments within that period? Because I'm, again, concerned with the time involved with that. And having been involved in the audit process, there's a lot of time, and I'm guessing officer time, and I don't want to harp on about that, but it is a time consent.
Do you want to take that, Councillor Whitcroft?
I'm going to answer the first part and then ask Ms Bainbridge to answer the second part. We are intending to roll this out slowly. It's not going to be a case of we look at this pilot scheme and then decide that we're going to introduce that through all services within the council, for the reason that Councillor Garrett outlined, because it is very time consuming, and we obviously need to be sure that it's working in the way that we intend, and that obviously, we want to carry on rolling it out. So the work, although there is a lot of it, it will go periodically rather than all in one hit. I'm going to ask Ms Bainbridge to explain, if you wouldn't mind, about the biannual reviews, please.
Thank you. Yes, so exactly as Councillor Whitcroft has said, the proposal would be to focus on 2 particular services each year. And we consider that we can deliver that within existing resources. So the reviews would be owned and delivered by the teams themselves. As Councillor Whitcroft said, it's really important that staff in the team are engaged with those processes. And then there's additional support available from my team, particularly from the ICT team, in terms of process mapping as well. In the report, we have set out in 4.16 some of the sort of higher priority areas that we might expect to see coming forward first. And then what we would then do is, in terms of the outcomes of the reviews, if we would build that into the regular performance reporting to the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee as well, so there's that kind of ongoing oversight of those processes. But we think that 2 service reviews each year can be done within existing resources.
Anybody else? Okay, so we're trying to strike a balance here between getting the benefits of the ISO approach, but without the bureaucracy, which I think was what you were trying to say as well, Councillor Garrett, and also target it on the most beneficial areas of the council which require that discipline and process. Okay, so we actually advised to resolve that there is continued support for the resolution of the Council in February 2022 that stated the key principles that underpin the ISO 9001 related quality and customer service standards are used to inform the Council's approach to delivering improved performance and customer focus across the organisation. A series of service reviews be undertaken based on a bespoke internal toolkit based on 2 reviews being completed each year. These will be included in the relevant annual plan, and 4 reviews will be completed in total over 2024-25 and 25-26. And lastly, that the Council does not seek formal ISO 9001 certifications across additional functions or the whole Council. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you to those involved in preparing that report. So we move on to item 8, which is the mid-year performance report, which is with myself. I guess there's 2 aspects to this. There's the short-term plan, which Councillor is in the Zoom meeting, initiated, and then I inherited, and then the mid-year progress report as well, so with respect to the annual plan. So it's got two dimensions to it. I think overall it shows a pretty positive picture. There's one or two things that that obviously we want to push forward a bit further forward than they are. But it's been a great effort from particularly the officer team in adopting some of the administration's new ideas and being able to execute them within a fairly short time frame. So we're very, very grateful for that. Does anybody have any questions? Because I'm not one for reading out a report that everybody should have read before they come, to be honest. Yes, Councillor White, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Eddie. Page 56 of the report, item 7, install car charging points. It says the majority of installation is complete. Can you say which ones have been completed? And I believe Bagshot has not yet, and it doesn't look to be any action there at all. So can we have an update on that?
Yeah, just to check, Councillor White, this is point 7 on page 56, is it?
56.
Around the charging points, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to be sure,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm happy to hand over to somebody else, but I think basically the issue is that the installation is complete, but we're still waiting for the connection in a number of cases. But Councillor Whitcroft may have a little bit more detail. She's inherited a lot of issues around the connection.
We are waiting. What has happened is that these installations need to be done in 3 phases. And each of the phases are done, as these things are, by different contractors. And of course, once one set of contractors get behind, it leads to on to the next and so on. So because the first lot have got behind, the second lot haven't been able to proceed, although it is just beginning to start. And then, of course, there's the third stage after that. We were initially told that this was going to take 6 weeks, which obviously isn't the case. It hasn't been the case. And Mr. Stevens and myself are intending meeting again with Connect Curb fairly shortly to see what can be done to expedite it. But unfortunately, the answer seems to be, well, we're dependent on our contractors, which as far as our residents here are concerned isn't good enough. And so obviously that's what we're going to be taking up with them.
Councillor White, please.
Switch me on. Thank you. It's going to sound a bit facetious, I do apologise, but can we make sure in future that Bagshot's not always the last to be done? You know, the rural areas are just as important as the town areas, and we always seem to be last in anything that comes to town.
Unfortunately, because of the work that's had to be done in terms of sections of car park, and the same applies for Chobham as well, sections of the car park had to be dug up to put the... That's right, yes, it was. But that didn't happen in any of the others. So Bagshot actually started first because they started doing that. And as I say, that it's just, the rest of it's just gotten further and further behind, which is why it's not progressed on from the fact that the work was done and the cables and everything laid. And unfortunately, it has got no further.
I'm pretty sure there isn't a policy to the Bagshot's last, Councillor White. And I'm sure the first will be last and the last will be first in due course, so don't worry. Okay. Any other questions on that one? Oh, Councillor Garrett.
Thank you. Firstly, I will take this opportunity because I didn't get a chance to thank Sarah on the night of all the work you did on the paperwork. So for P&F, thank you for that. I've just got one small question, and breaking my rules, because I printed out the papers from the P&F, I haven't actually got it tying up, and I know the pages numbers are different. It just refers to the Launch of Solar Together group buying scheme. I would just really interested to hear how many residents actually registered for that and when's that coming into effect?
I'm going to let Councillor Rise answer this in a moment. I actually had solar together round at my house today, so I was one of the ones. Unfortunately, my roof is too complicated and they can't make the numbers work. So I shall have to look at some other measures instead within the house to do my bit. But Councillor Rise, please.
I don't have exact numbers to hand. I know it is in the thousands. That is run by county, so it's not something that we've administered from Surrey Heath. It's happened and finished. It was successful, and I can say that there was an increase because there was a previous. This was the second phase, the second go. There was an increase on the first phase, and they are looking to do a third one. I will get exact numbers for you, though. I can't. I apologise. I can't.
And you said 1,000, and I know is that 1,000 in Surrey Heath or throughout Surrey?
I believe it's in Surrey Heath. It was, I believe, just to correct myself, I believe it was thousands that made inquiries and started the process. I can't guarantee it was thousands that actually were successful. For example, as we've had the leader say, there are funny roofs out there, but I will get exact figures for you.
I'm a bit concerned you were stalking me earlier today before you asked that question, Councillor Garrett, but never mind. That you knew I had solar together.
I didn't ask on the night.
Yeah, very good. Anyway, so thanks for asking that question, and obviously we want to encourage as many people as possible to look into that opportunity. Any other questions? Yes, sorry, Councillor Mears.
Thank you. On page 68, it's number 1 of supporting those in greatest need. The theme's enabling more people to get into employment, and in the detail it talks about establishing an employment navigator on a fixed term contract. It's got that down as complete. Could you shed some light on sort of who this employment navigator is and where they're based and sort of, what they're doing? Because I think I've missed something about this.
Thank you, Councillor Mears. I'm just catching up with you. Do you know which point it is on page 68?
Yes, it's point 1 on page 68.
Oh, yeah, I've got it now. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I think it sits with... Mr. Breenan's going to step into the breach. Thank you.
This post is funded by the NHS and it's in place, and the individual sits within my team, within the economic development team. Yeah, all recruited.
Thank you. And so, how long have they been here, and what are they doing? Are they sort of settling in at the moment? What are we going to see from the role?
Been in post probably about 2 months. So they've been working with a lot of other authorities at the moment, and a lot of other bodies to try and focus in getting people back into employment, basically, and making the best of the resources that are out there. But we can undertake a separate briefing if you'd like that.
That would be very helpful. Thank you for your offer.
Thank you, Councillor Mears. Any other questions for anybody? No, maybe just a short update from myself. I think I've made the relevant Bagshot and North Windlesham councillors aware, but I've been in correspondence, thanks to the support of Mr. Roberts as well, with the leader of Surrey County Council around the Whitmore Road playground, and escalated it that perhaps he can use his influence to get that over the line, seeing as all parties want to make that happen, with the extra concern around the loss of amenity from the children of Bagshot and their families being able to go across to the Country Park and Lightwater. So I got a positive response from him very quickly this morning. So let's hope that comes out in due course to a positive outcome. Yeah. Because that was our one red in the whole exercise. So it'd be nice to get that one clear. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. So we'll look at the what the recommendation here is. The executive is advised to note the short-term plan update at Annex A, the mid-year progress report at Annex B, and the comments and observations from the Performance and Financial Scrutiny Committee, which will be reported at the meeting at Annex C. So are we agreed on that?
Agreed.
Agreed. Again, and just to reiterate, thanks to everybody involved in completing those actions, particularly the short-term plan and in the reporting as well to Ms Bainbridge. Okay, so we move on to the appropriation and transfer of land at the Green, Frimley Green, which I think is with Mr Ashbury, Councillor Ashbury.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just a little bit of background to the paper. As part of the Section 106 agreement relating to the residential development at Mindenhurst in Deepcut, improvements to the road infrastructure in Frimley Green were identified as a necessity. Originally, the proposal was to replace the two roundabouts in the centre of Frimley Green with traffic light controlled junctions. This led, as many people know, to a campaign by local residents to retain the roundabouts and not have the traffic light junctions. And a revised scheme was agreed at Planning Applications Committee in December 2021, whereby the roundabouts would be kept in line with the residents' wishes. In order now to facilitate the road improvements that are necessary, we need to transfer a very small amount of land currently owned by Surrey Heath Borough Council to Surrey County for their use as highways. The land is a very small strip along Frimley Green, and so the proposal is that we transfer that over so that the improvement works can take place.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Very good. Any questions from anybody on that? No, I knew it was a very small piece of land because Mr Watson was prepared to give it away for free. Once I read that bit, it was a done deal. No, I did read the detail, obviously. Okay, so we'll move forward to the executive advised to resolve that the common land at the Green in Frimley Green as identified Annex A to this report be appropriated for the benefit, improvement and development of the area, and the disposal of the land to Surrey County Council for no purchase price to facilitate highway improvement works required in connection with the residential-led redevelopment of the Princess Royal Barracks site in Deepcut be agreed. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Very good. Okay. So we move on to the Revenue Budget Monitoring Report Quarter 2. Which is with Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for arriving late. Any questions that I missed at the beginning, obviously I'll pick up. So the highlight of the evening, and obviously a number of people heard this at PNF last week, so please try not to get overly excited for the second round. This is the revenue report for Q2 for the financial year 23-24, so the period ended 30th of September. There's a small underspend as at the end of September, but with a year-end adverse variance of which will be coming in at just over £400,000, and this is obviously based against the budget set in February 23, so obviously earlier this year. The underspend at this point of the year is considered normal. We are aware that historically there are still positive aiming for the year end and still are overly optimistic on some things and under on other things. So we are confident that we are putting in the right steps to bring us in on budget for the year end. But at this moment, it seems prudent to advise that there is an adverse variance likely. The main part of the financial stabilisation review that we have discussed previously is obviously to bring in the finance business partner model. Part of the intention of that is to ensure that accurate forecasting and full awareness and ownership of budgets is fully taken on board. So going forward, there should be less variance. The finance team at the moment is spending a huge amount of time working with the offices on budget setting for 24-25. And so hopefully any variances will not be so prevalent in that. Any questions?
Thank you, Councillor McIntyre. Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. So this revenue budget was set by the previous administration in February this year and has about 17.5 million expenditure. And the council's net income, of course, is 13.5 million. So that's about a 4 million deficit, which seems to be getting worse as time goes on. This seems, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in future years, but it doesn't seem like there's anything in this budget that's going to improve the position. So is it inevitable that the council is going to use up all of its reserves and go into section 114 because of the course that the previous administration has set it on? Thank you.
Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Wilson. As I stated at PNF, we are going through an extensive budget process. There are a lot of questions that councillors have on the finances. We are reviewing all areas for additional revenue. We're exploring all areas for additional savings. And we will be making decisions based on data and hard facts. It is a fact that we are going to have to make tough decisions, and I think that would be expected of us. But at this stage, it'd be unfair of me to put anything else on record until we have finalised that budget process.
Thank you, Councillor McIntyre. Any other questions? No. So I have one. Probably one for Mr. Watson to respond to, but by all means, Councillor McIntyre, you step in if you feel you can answer it. Under page 209.6.3, it says during the next financial quarter, work is underway to determine the correct capital financing requirement, the appropriate level of minimum revenue provision, MRP, and to confirm the debt interest position. That tends to imply that it's not currently correct. Has that work been completed, and if so, what is the outcome?
I'm going to pass over to Mr. Watson to confirm, but there is a lot of work and challenge looking at the MRP and the capital financing requirements, all part of the budget discussions.
Mr. Watson, do you want to respond?
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor McIntyre. Yes, the work has been done as part of the budget setting process for the 24-25 budget. That process has worked out that potentially our minimum revenue provision based on our capital financing requirement will go up by just over £300,000, about 310,000 I think is the figure we're looking at in the budget. This is quite common as our capital financing requirement goes up. There are various factors that influence it, how much capital money we spend in the year and thus have to finance, and potentially the type of asset that we are financing. So whereas we will try and do most of our revenue provision through what we call an annuity basis, and it will be on assets that are generally the longer term ones, using our revenue or our capital receipts to pay for the shorter term items to allow us to avoid an undue excessive hit on the revenue budget. But the answer to the question simply, yes, we've done the work, and yes, we think we have the right figure going forward. It does fluctuate based on various factors in terms of our borrowing and what we're paying off as well.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. So that's 300,000 per year extra in MRP payments. Do I understand that correctly?
That would be 300,000 going into the base budget, yes.
And what's the change in the capital financing requirement associated with that, please?
The change is that we have recalculated in the year with the new strategic finance manager in post, or interim at this point, and we believe the capital finance requirement may previously have been based on our borrowing rather than the actual capital financing requirement, and therefore slightly understated, which is why you've had to increase it for next year. Capital finance requirement currently is assessed as £207 million, which is the amount we need there. So the difference between our borrowing and the capital finance requirement is what we funded from internal resources, or internal borrowing as it's known.
Would I be right in thinking around 30 million would be the right answer?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so this administration seeing a £300,000 change in our MRP payments as a function of a disconnect in the capital financing requirement calculation, which we've inherited from the previous administration. Is that correct, Mr. Watson?
I would say it's more of an error within the financial accounting team that we've had, and we're now putting these right.
Okay, thank you very much. The net result is the same to us as an administration. We're having to carry an extra £300,000 cost into next year, which I think maybe gives some insights to the councillors from the opposition side of the chamber as to the statements I made previously in the year. If we don't have any other questions, no, good. Okay, let's see what we're asked to do with this one. Executive is advised to resolve that the spend against the approved revenue budget for the period 1st of April to 30th of September 2023 and the predicted forecast of full year outturn be noted. Any comments and recommendations from the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee from its meeting on Wednesday, the 15th of November 2023 be noted. And that the Chief Executive, Strategic Directors, Heads of Service be asked, in consultation with the relevant portfolio holders, to take appropriate action to keep the overall net expenditure within agreed limits for the working budget by the end of the financial year. Are we so agreed?
Agreed.
That's great. Thank you. Yes, let's hope for a flight path and a landing there or thereabouts. Mr. Roberts, Mr. Watson, and team. Okay, so let's move on to which is the one that's even more exciting than the previous report. And back.
Do you know what? I have to say, I'm sorry, disappointed we didn't get fireworks on the announcement of the revenue budget during the executive. Right, capital report. So this is a half year, not a quarter, obviously ending at the same point, the end of September. I'll just read out the main points, obviously, as I'm sure you've all read it. So total spend and commitment for to the half year is 2.2 million. Against a budget of 13.2 million, forecasting an annual underspend of 7.8 million, with 7.6 of that reprofiled into next year. The majority of that reprofiling is made up of four main schemes. So you've got the London Road Block Property Acquisition Strategy, Cambridge Square and Ashwood House Public Realm. There is a review underway of all the capital programmes to ensure that there's a clear way forward on all of them, and we can ensure that the right capital requirements are taken into account in the budget process. Any questions?
Councillor Wilson.
So this capital budget was also produced by the previous administration in February last year, and it has failed. Only 16% of it has been viable so far in the first half of the year. All the main projects are not going to happen this year. Most of the funds are going to be reprofiled to next year. We're going to have to, or the council's going to have another look at everything that's in this, because it doesn't seem to be viable. It's a failed budget from a failed administration. Would you agree?
Councillor McIntyre.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. So the capital projects go over a number of years, and it is not abnormal to reprofile across a number of years. In an ideal world, you would know what can be delivered in a year, and you deliver it so that your forecasting and your promises can be delivered. We are at a point where we need to fully understand the impact of all of these all of these projects and make a data-driven decision on what we need to do and what we can do and ensure that we have a clear road ahead.
Thank you, Councillor McIntyre. Any other questions from anybody? No? Okay. I think this might be one of the ones on the, which I think Councillor Wilson was alluding to, could do better list, but I think it's also fair to say that capital management is notoriously tricky in all organisations, but it's certainly something we can do. We can all try to do better on, and hence we're investing in the resources within Mr. Watson's team to try and sharpen this up going forward. So the executive is advised to resolve that the spend against the approved capital programme for the period 1st of April to 30th of September 2023 be noted, and the proposed reprofiling of budgets to future years be agreed. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. That's item. So I think we have to say farewell to our Lightwater guests. Thank you for joining us, but it's that time of night where we exclude the public. And can you deal with the technology side while I get through the rigmarole here? The executive is advised to resolve that under Regulation 4 of the Local Authorities, Executive Arrangements, Meetings and Access to Information England Regulations 2012, the public will be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, as set out below. Item 13, paragraph 3, information related to financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. Item 14, paragraph 3, information relating to the financial or public affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. Unless I'm reading that wrong, that looks like the same text, but never mind.